chapter 1, verse 1, up to this moment, all squeezed in a short amount of time. And in this one verse, you're going to see a marriage, a pregnancy, and a delivery, all in this one short verse. Look at verse 13. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. And he went into her, and the Lord gave her conception, and she bore a son. I want to pause here. I want to make a comment about the overall story of the book of Ruth, and how much it has in common with another story about a woman that we looked at last year, a woman by the name of Esther. Remember we went through the story of Esther? One of the interesting things about the story of Esther is that throughout the entire book of Esther, not one time do you see God named specifically or described. And the book of Ruth is almost as bad as that, if you want to use that terminology of being bad. Only 2 times in this entire 4-chapter book do we see any mention of the Lord or reference to the Lord. One is in Ruth chapter 1, verse 6, where we're told that Naomi, while she was in the fields of Moab, she heard that the Lord had visited his people back in Bethlehem and had given them food. And the second time that the Lord is mentioned is here in verse 13, where it says that the Lord gave her conception. I'm mindful of the fact that there were 2 things that Naomi and Ruth needed more than anything else. They needed food and they needed family. That's what they were missing. Those are the 2 things that they needed. It's 2 things that they did not have. And these are the 2 things that the Lord directly gets credit for providing in the book of Ruth. It's a reminder that God is always the ultimate source of our provision. Whatever we receive, however it comes, whatever way that we need, it is God who always provides it every time. Now move past that and look at the next couple of verses 14 and 15. She's delivered this child. When the local women have caught wind of this delivery, listen to what they say to Naomi. And the women said to Naomi, "Blessed be the Lord who has not left you this day without a redeemer. And may his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you, who is more to you than 7 sons, has given birth to him." And we sort of see an interesting shift here. Before this, who is the Redeemer? The ultimate Redeemer in the immediate context is Boaz. But here, for some reason, the women, in talking to Naomi, refer to the new child that has been born as a Redeemer. And the reason why is likely because Naomi's husband's name, and ultimately her son's name, Mahlon, is going to continue through this son, through this child. And possibly, if Boaz at some point passes away before Naomi does, this child, as a grown-up man, will likely take care of her as well. And then notice what the women pray as they are speaking here. They pray that this child would be renowned in Israel. And he was. In fact, we learn in verse 16 that he was Obed. We'll get to that in a moment. This child's name was Obed. And Obed is known for being the father, the grandfather of a guy by the name of David. Do you know the name of David? King David. And so Naomi and Ruth receive something that's incredibly relevant to them in this moment. They declare him to be, as they're praying, this new Redeemer that's been born to Ruth. Proclaim him to be a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age. Now you got to remember, as they're speaking this, remember the context of all that had been lost by Naomi, all that had been lost by Ruth. They had lost family connections, they had lost husbands, they had lost children and future children and grandchildren, they had lost security, they had lost hope. They had been through a very dark, dark time. Their lives, both of them, were very difficult, and yet now they had finally experienced real redemption. And with the redemption came real restoration. There was a story that's floating on Facebook a little over a year ago. The story came out about a 20-year-old guy by the name of Hunter Shamat. And he lost his wallet. He was flying from South Dakota, flying to Las Vegas because his sister was getting married out there. And he had his wallet with him, but he lost this wallet. All that was in his wallet was his ID. It had his debit card. It had $60 in cash. And it had a signed paycheck that he hadn't cashed yet. And he lost it. He figured that it was just gone for good. However, a few days later, after he got back from the wedding, he received his wallet in the mail. There was a guy by the name of Todd Brown who had found the wallet, and he sent this wallet back to him. And when he opened it up, he not only discovered that everything that he had in the wallet was there, but there was also a little extra added to it, and included this note: Hunter, I found this on a Frontier flight from Omaha to Denver, wedged between the seat and wall. Thought you might want it back. All the best. P.S. I rounded your cash up to an even $100 so you could even celebrate getting your wallet back. Have fun. Right? Isn't that a good story? That's an incredible story. This is redemption, right? This is loss and receiving back what you have lost. But oftentimes, when the Lord brings redemption to us, this is what He does to redeem us. When we've experienced great darkness, we may have lost much, but the Lord can bring restoration and then some. Now listen, that doesn't mean that you're going to get everything back exactly the way things were before you lost it. I mean, Naomi's husband, he doesn't come back to life. Ruth's husband, he doesn't come back to life. These things are still matter of fact for them. But the Lord brings restoration to them in other ways. And friend, it's a testimony that though we may lose and though we may suffer, when God restores, He brings goodness back to us. And He can do the same for you too. And additionally, He remains your nourisher. He will keep on meeting your needs and meeting your needs, providing what you need when you need it. A realized redemption, it comes from a real Redeemer, brings about a real restoration in this third and final point, and finally it leaves a real legacy. Look at verse 16. Then Naomi took the child and laid him on her lap and became his nurse. And the women of the neighborhood gave him a name, saying, a son has been born to Naomi. Now, isn't this an incredible picture here? Those of you who are grandparents in the room, you know how sweet it is. I'm not yet there, but how sweet it is to hold a grandchild in your hand. You know, the child belongs to your children, but it's like you have the blessing of your children. Now there's the double blessing of again having children again through your own. So we see this sweet picture that's being painted here, a grandmother holding a grandchild. Is there anything sweeter than this? And near the beginning of the story, again, Naomi had no husband, no son, no grandchildren, no possibility of grandchildren, a dark time, a time of loss. But now her hand is full, her lap is full, and her heart is full. Isn't that a great way to end the story? Isn't it awesome? Except that's not where the story ends. The story's not over. In fact, it's just getting started. Because of Naomi and Ruth's redemption story, there's a much bigger redemption story that's being played out. Because you continue to read there in verse 17, you see these words. They named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. Now these are the generations of Perez. Perez fathered Hezron. Hezron fathered Ram. Ram fathered Amminadab. Amminadab fathered Nahshon. Nahshon fathered Salmon. Salmon fathered Boaz. Boaz fathered Obed. Obed fathered Jesse. And Jesse fathered David. Now we're getting something here that for us seems to be a little bit boring. We get into the begats and who's the father and who's the son. We see a number of these lists in the Bible. But what we're getting here is a little bit of family history. We're learning of Boaz's ancestors, but we're also learning of his descendants. And his grandson, Ruth's grandson, is none other than David. Yes, that David, the one who killed Goliath and was crowned king of Israel. Do you want to see something that's even more awesome than that? We're done with the book of Ruth. I want you to go to Matthew chapter 1, right to the beginning. Would you do that? Go to Matthew chapter 1 and look with me there. You know, we're getting ready